is Stephen Wago,
And Johnna Wago.
and we're the Wagos on megapowersradio.com, here presenting Addicted to Anime, and it has been a long hiatus. Unfortunately, we had a few things thrown in the works. One, our one episode didn't get recorded, and two, we had a meltdown on the one computer, but we're back and we're better than ever. And tonight we're going to be talking about an anime which is close and dear to both mine and John's heart, and that is Death Note. Of course, if you want to call in and participate via the phone line, you can do so via 760-512-7247. Also, if you're cheap and you don't want to pay the phone bill, there's a Skype button that you can click. That'll put you right through to me on my soundboard. I'll bring you on and you can let us know. And of course, if you're a guest in the chat, make sure you register a name with Blog Talk Radio, and then you can tell us your opinion right there, and we'll banter backwards and forwards as the show goes on. So, first off and first things, probably get into the plot of Death Note, and Johnna, I'm going to let you go ahead and give us a brief synopsis of what that is.
Well, I think by this point, Death Note's been out so long that most of you probably know what it's about, but I'll cover it just in case. It's pretty straightforward. A notebook falls from the sky, and a high school student going on college student picks it up. And basically, he reads the rules. It says that if you write someone's name in this, they'll die. Of course, he doesn't believe it, and he writes someone's name in it, and lo and behold, they die. Over the course of the anime, he goes from being a normal student to being a great and powerful force that the police are chasing after to try to stop. Even though he's only killing criminals, it's becoming larger and larger amounts, and some of these people aren't even getting to trial before he does it. So they chase him down, the great Detective L shows up, and it's basically a big showdown over the course of about 30-something episodes.
Yep, that pretty much covers what it is. And just so you guys have a few ground rules on how the Death Note works, what it can and cannot do. So first off, if you write someone's name down in the Death Note, you must have a name and a face. The name can't be spelt incorrectly, and you must have a clear vision of the face and the identity of the person. That way, people who share a similar name aren't also killed. In addition to that, there was a really basic rule which I'm forgetting right now.
Well, let's see. Gosh, we actually have a copy of this notebook, and it's got so many rules in it, more than the anime actually covers.
Yeah, there's no way we're going to list all of these off, but there's also an ability called the Shinigami Eyes, which you can trade half of your lifespan away to gain the eyes of a Shinigami, where you can see the life force and name of the other individuals. In addition to writing names down, if you do not put a cause of death, the person will die via a heart attack. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, you can write the person's method of dying, a date and time for it, and the way they did it. Mm-hmm. So that leaves Light to play around and have plenty of functionality and plot.
Was the rule you were thinking of that a human that uses the notebook can't go to heaven nor hell?
That was it. And if you're one of these unfortunate souls that find this Death Note and start using it, there is no afterlife for you. What happens to you exactly? There's a few theories on that.
They never actually cover it.
But I'll get into what I believe is the most likely theory of that later. So, we should probably talk about the main protagonist. And it's weird because he's a villain, but he's definitely the protagonist.
He's definitely the protagonist, yes.
Well, he's a villain if you...
Anti-hero?
He's a villain in the respect that if you don't agree with what he's doing, he's a villain. But if you share similar views, you might think differently, and that's the whole appeal to Death Note.
Well, in the end,
it's a battle of morality more than anything.
In the end, in many cases, bad and good are very different. They're very similar. There's a thin line between them, and there's the fact that even if there's a bad guy and what he's doing is clearly bad, he still might think what he's doing is right. So it's
perception
a touchy
is
subject.
reality to people. Mm-hmm. And so that is a lot of what Death Note is. It's morality. It's where do you draw the line where something stops being right and starts being wrong? Are you justice or are you evil? Mm. So the main character is the one that struggles with that the most, or at least we struggle with that regarding him the most. His name's Light Yagami. He's the high school student that picks the Death Note up after a day of class, and for the most part, he seems a bright honor student and almost
top of his class.
Perfect child that you'd want to have. But
polite to his parents, helps his sister with homework, gets top grades.
But life's become boring to him. Life's become boring to him, and as he proceeds to go through his normal days, he's seeing horrible activities go on, rapes, murders go on, go unpunished. And Light's father is actually the head of
He's a police chief.
yeah, he's like the chief of police, and he's very much so for justice. So Light's got this sense of justice instilled from his own family.
From a very young age, I imagine.
Mm-hmm. So when he gets the ability to punish these evildoers, after the first one's an experiment, he tries it again and again, and he's learning that he can be a force to be reckoned with in this world. And on the very first night of it having, he writes a shit ton of names down.
Yeah.
And you've seen quickly, and well, then what we realize is that notebook didn't just appear. It was dropped into this world by a Shinigami. And a Shinigami is a god of death, and I'll let you tell the people who Ryuk is.
There are not many good ways to explain exactly who Ryuk is. He's a very bored Shinigami that lives in the Shinigami realm and got really bored, so he dropped his death note into the world to see if a human being would pick it up so he'd have some entertainment. There's not much to Ryuk other than the fact that he really likes apples, and he doesn't seem to care for one side or the other as far as morality issues go. He's just a constant neutral that isn't going to pick sides. He'll just stick around with who entertains him the most.
Which is very appealing because he refuses to help Light. He'll break a rule or two just for shits and giggles.
Because he wants to see how it'll turn out.
Mm-hmm. But for the most part, he's an unhelpful cunt.
Yeah.
Like he'll see something that could get Light killed right there and then. Rather than tell him about it, he'll start pissing his pants laughing. And that's the only reason that Light knows, oh shit, I'm in trouble, is because Ryuk's giggling about it in the background. And obviously Light can only hear it, so only people that have touched this Death Note can actually see Ryuk. And it makes some real fun entertainment as far as he goes. So Ryuk and Light build a bit of a relationship as Light continues to do his thing, and the media start picking up on it and naming him Kira over the internet, taking it from the English World Killer, and so on and so forth until the police have to bring in the world's most renowned detective. L. His identity is unknown, and there is only one person that can actually get in contact with him, and that's Watari.
Very few people have actually seen L's face other than Watari and a few other people at the orphanage she came from.
In addition to that, even Watari himself stays concealed when he turns up into a public place.
Yes.
So they call him in, and L, based on where the deaths are and the information available, figures that the killer must be in Japan. And he decides to start with the most busiest and populated region, Kanto, and puts on pretty much a display
on live television.
Saying with there's an individual, Lind L. Taylor, declaring himself as L. Kira, who is Light at this point, Light and Kira, are angered by this and see it as a challenge, so he kills L on television.
Thinking it's L.
And then it's turned out that no, it isn't. And
he was a convict scheduled to be executed that day.
And L tells him that via the broadcast, not showing his face, but only a one letter, which is L
just
on the screen.
L on the screen.
And pretty much mocks Kira and goes, can you kill me? Do it now. Do it now. Do it now. And from there, the relationship of L versus Kira is set in stone, with the internet going crazy over it, going, L versus Kira, L versus Kira. And it's funny because through all of L's dialects leading up to this and how he knew it would work, it's because he and Kira are so much alike.
Mm-hmm. One thing that I found funny about that particular broadcast is he had actually told in the broadcast that it had been broadcasted live all over the world, but it had only been Kanto region of Japan, and the look on Light's face when he told him it had only been in the Kanto region was just absolutely
they
priceless.
Broadcasted this broadcast as like worldwide, like national, I should say.
Yeah. And
it wasn't, so he got fucking lucky.
Yep.
And he was like, I didn't actually believe this worked.
Yeah.
But and from that broadcast alone, he learned so much about Light's personality and how he operates, and that starts this meticulous battle between the two. And I think probably now is the most interesting topic to get into, and that is the morality of the Death Note and the morality of Light's way of dealing with criminals. In addition to that, should do you agree that L should bring him to execution? So from what I get it, Johnna's more Team L as I'm Team Kid.
Yeah, but it's not black and white.
Mm-hmm.
There are shades of gray to this. On more than one occasion, you've mentioned things that Light did that you said were blatantly wrong and evil. And there have been times when I've said, maybe what Kira's doing could be right in a small sense. But yeah, I suppose I lean closer to L and he leans closer to Kira.
Here's my thing. I truly believe that there are people in this world that are either evil or bad enough and insignificant enough where if they was just done away with, the world would be a better place. And if everyone sees all these horrible and disgusting people are getting killed off and they're not getting away with these anymore because hundreds, thousands, millions of criminals get away with everything every single day and hurt more people. If they suddenly don't get to do that, then, oh, only the good are being left alone. Only the good are being rewarded. Maybe this Kira guy isn't so bad. Maybe Kira's bringing justice to this world. Maybe we don't have to worry about evil anymore. And that's where it comes into is I'm like, if there's less bad people in the world, less bad things are going to happen. It's as simple as. Is it right or wrong for one person to play God? Probably not, but is it right? Is our justice system in any country right or wrong at this point? And the answer is no.
No.
So I'll let you give your piece on that.
Well, one thing that scares me is on more than it happens all the time when people are falsely accused.
Mm-hmm.
What happens then? Is if by just using the law of general mathematics here, he had to have killed several innocent people.
Definitely. He killed, I don't know how many names he written down, but it was definitely in the tens of thousands.
Oh, yeah, easily.
Because the Death Note also doesn't run out of pages. It just magically makes more. It's really creepy.
There's no way, just thinking about it, there's no way he didn't kill probably hundreds of innocent people that did nothing and had just been framed. Or just things hadn't gone right. It's
here's the
very
thing,
idea that I remember talking to you.
Vice versa, if they're punished or not, they were still going to jail anyway.
Here's the thing, though. He also killed criminals that didn't go to jail but got away.
Yeah, that's true.
What about those people? Well, I'm sure some of them were innocent. I've had a conversation with you on more than one occasion where we discussed the death penalty, and you said that no one should be sentenced to death unless you can prove beyond a shadow of a doubt, 110%, that they're the ones that did it.
Yeah, I don't believe in substantial evidence. If there is 100% concrete evidence,
And do you think Light had that evidence?
No.
Because he didn't.
He has to trust the justice system that's reported on it.
Which is really horrible. The justice system is crap. That's mine.
My attitude is if a guy got stabbed and the knife is in their body and your handprint is on the fucking knife and your fingerprints are all over it, you stabbed the guy.
Yeah. But obviously, if they found that type of situation, that guy'd be in jail.
Yeah, as opposed to substantial evidence where if a guy got stabbed, you was in the same room, but there's no DNA evidence linking between you two, then sure, you can try and piece it together and see if he's guilty, but you can't sentence him to death for it.
Of course not. But that's basically what Light is doing. He's going off of a bunch of substantial evidence that means nothing. It's not even so much that I think that what he's doing is wrong. If I agree with you, there are some people in this world that the world wouldn't miss, and they've done such horrific things that you'd probably be doing the world a favor by getting rid of them. But at the same time, without that concrete evidence, you're going to be killing thousands upon thousands of innocent people, and that is what gets me. That's what really gets me.
So let's talk about L and Light's path and journey a little bit so we can talk about their personalities and how they play off each other. Now, Light continues to do what he's doing, but is a little more tedious and, not tedious, a little more, he keeps it on the down low.
Yeah.
But it's happening on a wider scale. He's being more careful now. And L's getting closer and closer and closer. The end result is both of them want to meet up to each other so they can investigate each other. It gets to the point where L just turns up at his school and he's like, yo, I'm L. What can he do? He can't write his name down. He doesn't know it. The funniest part is L's name it's never revealed in the anime, but it's revealed in books and
the live action movie.
That his name's Loliot.
I don't know if it's pronounced Loliot or Lolier. But
it's hilarity.
It's funny because his first name really is L.
You'd still need the last name.
Yeah, but
it's kind of a fuck you.
Yeah.
Hiding in plain sight.
Yeah. That's smart. It is smart. And no one expected that, I think. But
so I liked that. So they finally actually Light gets on the investigation team because he's already helped out in the past. His father's there, so L brings him on after he meets him. But he meets him telling him, "I think you're Kira."
Yeah. He's like, before we continue, I'm just going to be straightforward with you about something. I think you're Kira. Or he says, I suspect you're Kira. Because Light asks him, how sure are you? And he said about 1%, didn't he?
Then it was 5%.
Or was 5%. It went up to 5%, but it's still a very small percentage.
Mm-hmm.
He just wanted to investigate
because it was a win-win for L. Light is a fantastic investigator. He has a brilliant mind. And he's helped out on a levels that some of the investigators couldn't.
So if he isn't Kira, then he would just make a very good investigator for his team.
On the plus side, if he is Kira, he has him right next to him.
Yeah.
He can't make a move without L knowing.
Keep your enemies closer.
So, and the best of it is, the more that Light shows his ability as an investigator, the more and more it makes it likely that he is in fact Kira. No matter what he says to L, it's only making every his suspicions like increase. So that relationship alone is funny as hell, but their personalities clash too.
Yeah,
they're very
they're too alike.
L's gone ahead and said that
Light is childish and Kira is childish and afraid to lose, and they ask him. He says, "I know that because I'm also childish and I hate to lose."
And stuff like that is a constant with their relationship.
They're stubborn.
But where they clash is, sure, the personas of L and Kira mesh up very well, but the two people behind that, not so much. Like, Kira is well dressed, smart, educated, and whilst L possesses much intelligence, he looks ratty as hell.
Yeah.
He eats candy all day. He has dark circles under his eyes. His hair's a mess. He wears a white t-shirt, white long sleeve shirt, jeans, and no socks.
Never changes.
Yeah, he's like a dirty.
I did see him wear shoes once.
I mean, I'd hate to sit next to the guy. I bet he smells like a dead rat.
I hope he showers.
I hope he showers too, but that's just the reality of it. They're two totally different people, but they've got traits that are the same.
Yes.
And that's the whole point of L, though. He's a mystery. You don't know too much about him. He's got interesting quirks. He loves candy. He can't sit. He can't.
Not just candy, sweets in general.
Yeah, he has to sit. It's not exactly a crouching position.
It's similar to you look like you're in the fetal position, but balancing on your toes.
Mm-hmm. And he says he has to do that because it reduces his deducing power. Reduce the deduce.
It doesn't. Well, sitting normal reduces.
His he has to sit like that, otherwise his deduction skills
go down. Same for the sugar.
He said about 90%.
Yeah.
Which is a fucking lot.
Same goes for the sugar. He says that it keeps his brain going.
Yes, and I love. Later, we made a character called Mesa, and I might use this as a segue to go into that.
Mm-hmm.
She's a very ditzy girl, and she says to L, "You're gonna get yourself fat if you eat all that cake." And he goes, "Well, no, I find if you are thinking and use your brain enough that you burn it off." And she's like, "You're trying to call me dumb?" Pretty much,
yeah. Sometime during this podcast, we have to mention. I can't imagine a world without light.
I was about to actually just go on with that.
Yes.
Mesa, L's also very sarcastic when he wants to be. He doesn't show it too often, and it's normally too quirky to be sure if it's sarcasm, but this one, it was blatant. Mesa is like, he's saying, "Could you imagine what the world would be like if light was dead?" And she's like, I can't imagine a world without light. Yes, that would be dark. It's stuff like that just makes me crack up. And English or Japanese voice actor, he has that kind of...
Both of them are very good at what they do,
mm-hmm.
in my opinion. Both voice actors for L.
And generally, voice acting throughout this anime is not bad at all.
No.
There's a few
I'm
select
on and
minor
off.
characters, but other than that,
I'm on and off with Misa. Sometimes I like it, sometimes I don't. I like the Japanese one. I'm on and off about her English voice actor, but there are a few gems that she's done, the English one.
mm-hmm. So let's talk about a few more of the characters. Misa reveals that she is in fact.
Well, let's first cover the TV is suddenly overtaken by a second Kira that shows up. Sakura TV ends up playing it because she threatens their lives if they don't, and slowly they discover that this whole time they've been calling the second Kira he, and
it's a she.
It's a she.
But Misa is a big fan of Kira, and I like it. It's an interesting way to bring her in, and such a total opposite to everything that you see in the show. It's all serious and so stable, and then you've got Misa, who is this uncontrollable ball of energy.
Mm-hmm.
And her parents were in fact murdered by some criminals who got away with it.
Not for long, because Kira got them. And that's why she worships him.
So when she also came in possession of a Death Note, which we'll get into a little more when we talk about Shinigami some more, when she became in the possession of a Death Note, she used it to get in contact with the Thirst Kira and express her love to him.
Mm-hmm.
And as we mentioned about the Shinigami eyes, she in fact had those.
Yep.
And she became Kira's eyes.
Yep.
And the relationship between her and Kira it's sporadic.
It is. I think she knows that he's just using her, but I don't think she cares.
Well, I'll let you go in and explain that in a little more depth, their relationship in general.
It's very obvious that Light has no real interest in being her girlfriend, her boyfriend. He'd be a pretty girl. It's obvious that he's using her. And she even said, I don't even care if you use me. Just let me be at your side. Let me help you. Let me be your eyes. And just let me call you my boyfriend. And he eventually agrees to it. I think for a long, long time, she knows she's being used. Though eventually, I'm pretty sure she starts to think he might actually have feelings for her because he has to move in with her and things like that. I think she eventually forgets she's being used. And it's actually kind of sad to see, but she seems like a genuinely happy girl, despite being used and knowing she's being used. Should I talk about Rem?
I think it's blind worship more than anything.
Kira is. She doesn't even know who he is.
And initially, she worshipped Kira as a god. Mm-hmm. But then when she met Kira the person, she obviously fell for him.
Yeah.
So even if she's being used, there's still that god mentality where she still worships the concept of Kira.
Yeah.
And the
idea of Kira.
Mm-hmm. So that's what I think keeps their relationship together. And I'll let you tell them about Rem, who is the Misa's Shinigami, as opposed to Ryuk, who was Light's.
Rem is a female Shinigami that brought the notebook to Mesa. Apparently, that notebook was not Rem's. It actually belonged to a Shinigami named Jealous, who, fun fact, Jealous is voiced in the Japanese version by the man that plays L in the live-action movie, which I thought was an interesting little tidbit. Now, Jealous had been watching Mesa from the Shinigami realm, and he knew that she was going to die soon. Finally, when the day came, he couldn't stand it. He'd fallen in love with Mesa, and he couldn't stand the thought of her dying. So he wrote the murderer's name in his notebook and saved her life. It was a stalker that wanted to be with her, and when she turned him down, he went crazy with rage and said, if I can't have you, no one's going to have you, and tried to kill her. And Jealous wrote the guy's name in his book, and you can't, that's like a big no-no in the Shinigami realm, and Rem sat there with him and watched as he fell apart into nothing but dust.
Yeah, you don't like get any afterlife after that. Like,
yeah, you're done.
Mm-hmm. So he just became nothing but a pile of sand.
Mm-hmm.
And it's depressing on another level, which I didn't think till about recently, but how awful must being a Shinigami be if that your life is so horrible that you spend every day looking down upon the human realm and like watching one particular person, falling in love with them to the point that you give your own life away for someone that you've never even met in person, breathe the same air as. it's that is how horrible their dull world is. It's just full of skulls and
It's dark.
dark.
All they do
dreary.
is gamble.
All they do is gamble because they have nothing to do all day. You're all ugly motherfuckers too, so that can't be too pretty either.
Yeah.
So that kind of puts into perspective as why Ryuk was so bored and dropped the Death Note in the first place. Shinigamis in general are just very interesting, and they come in all shapes and sizes. There's not one that looks the different.
They all look different, you mean?
Yeah, there's not one that looks the same. They're all different. So it's a lot of fun in that respect that the creators got plenty of time to mess around and experiment with that.
You know, in the 13th novel, they actually have all the Shinigami in it, like more than the three you actually see, and it actually describes what they're like as individuals. It's pretty interesting.
So, what other characters do we need to talk about? Well, the police force.
Police force.
There's not too much to say about this. It consists of Light's father, as we mentioned. He's got a very honorable sense of justice. He's very typical Japanese father.
We should also probably mention Light's family. He has a mother and a sister, little sister. That's about all you need to know.
That's all there is to say. One's called Sayu and the other's just Mom.
Yeah.
So...
That's totally her name.
Yeah, and then the other notable members of the police force are... First one that strikes me is I don't like him, but it's Matsuda.
I love Matsuda. He makes me laugh. He's the comic relief.
Matsuda is very much that. He's the comic relief. He's naive. He even admits that sometimes he thinks the world's better off with Kira, but he knows it's morally wrong.
Yeah.
So, and he's the only one that's got the balls to actually say that.
Yeah.
In addition to that,
there is Aizawa. Aizawa's important.
I always forget everyone else because I'm going to go ahead and say this now.
I only ever remember Matsuda and Aizawa.
The 90% of the police force don't really mean anything. Yeah. They are just for collateral that they need to kill off, or they need to do a side story with, or if they need to fill something with. It's like, hey, Aizawa, go be Misa Amane's fake manager.
That wasn't Aizawa.
I'm just saying.
Yeah, I know.
Like, that's all they're used for.
Exactly. Aizawa, though, I was curious as to why he stayed in the task force, because everyone else left. They had a much bigger task force. It was dozens of people. But finally, the chief told them, look, you could die. You have to think about your family. If you want to leave now, there will be no penalty. It's okay. And so most of them leave, and there's only just a few of them left. I'm surprised Aizawa stayed because he has a wife and a child. And apparently their home life isn't very good. So the fact they staying out all night working on the Kita case doesn't help that any. So I was surprised he stayed. Let's see, there's
Mochi.
Mogi. Yes. Well, his real name is Kanzo Mogi. And Misa affectionately has nicknamed him with Mochi. And that, for those of you that don't know much about Japanese culture, that is a sweet little treat made out of rice flour dough and lots of different sweet fillings. So I thought that was cute.
What cracks me up about him and Elle, they have this. I think it's Mogi and Elle that have this brief conversation. He tells him something, and he goes, That was a secret. If I give you the strawberry, no. If I give you the strawberry, will you keep it a secret? And he just gives it him, and he puts it in his pocket.
Yeah, Mogi
puts so fucking random. It's like, keep it a secret, and I'll give you the strawberry. Boop.
And he just puts it in his pocket.
Nonchalantly. It's not like he even looked at it confused. Why are you giving me a fucking strawberry?
He was just like, oh, all right, sure, and puts it in his pocket.
Didn't fucking even eat it. There's a million and one things better than
he didn't even make a different face. And he kept his resting bitch face on.
And you know what? I bet goes home later and goes, the fuck? The strawberry. Or a week later, it's just going to be in his fucking, suit pocket or something.
Oh, he'll be all decayed and shit. Yucky.
You know that's what's going to happen, because you're not going to remember, oh yeah, Elle gave me the strawberry.
Yep.
It was super special to me, because he gave it to me for a secret. Fucking dumb as shit.
Other people are Hideki Ide, Hirozaki Ukita. None of these people are...
They're just cannon fodder.
Well, Hirokazu Ukita doesn't actually last very long. He dies... Actually, Misa kills him. Mm-hmm. He was the one that... He tried to make the... broadcast
of Kira 2 stop.
Yeah, so she killed him. then later on we get into other people, but they're part of the task force, but not the Japanese police task force.
So they're not important.
I'm talking just people like Iber and Weddy.
So they're not really important to the storyline again. They're just cannon fodder.
Mm-hmm.
And they're killed off by Kira eventually too themselves.
Yep.
So basically, the biggest plot device right now is the eventual end of Kira versus L. Because after that, we're introduced to several new characters.
Yes.
Now, Kira and L, they finally come down to have a shot. They have like this weird emotional scene on the roof. It's pouring cold with rain, and there's a lot of symbolism, a lot of Christian symbolism. Elle mentions that he's hearing the bells recently, and that's a callback to his child orphanage days. And
I wasn't sure if that was from when his parents died or from when he entered the orphanage.
it was when he entered the orphanage. If you I'll get into it actually. It's opposed to telling it right now, but so he's saying he's hearing the bells, is implying that he's probably going to die soon. He also says this will be the end soon, and it's very it's like it came out of nowhere. It's like he hasn't figured out why he's going to die and how he's going to die, but he knows it's going to happen.
And you actually see right before that Elle can't sleep and he ends up going to Watari.
Mm-hmm.
Like he knows something bad's going to happen. It's kind of sad actually.
And there's this scene where, because Elle's called him out into the rain to talk, that he apologizes and he's cleaning and drying off Elle's feet.
Yeah.
Sorry, Kira's feet. And it just kind of symbolism of the oncoming scenario where he dies.
The betrayal.
And the reason he dies is because Light puts Mesa in a situation where she's going to get caught and framed for every Kira death ever.
Yeah. And so he knows Rem will do anything to protect Mesa.
So Rem kills Elle and kills Watari as a method to stop them from capturing Mesa, because she protected Mesa, who was going to die because she would have been executed.
Mm-hmm.
She herself dies, much like Jealous did. And because of that, Light is up an extra notebook.
Yeah.
And in addition to that, he's defeated Elle. Now, in the Japanese version, there's a scene that was kept, but not kept in the English version, and it's Elle's funeral.
Mm-hmm.
They give Light a moment alone with Elle's tombstone because he seems the most emotional. And the reason he's so emotional is he wasn't holding back tears.
He was holding back laughter.
He fucking goes, this is the moment where he goes insane.
Shit.
I used to think it was a later scene, but when I saw this, I was like, oh, this pushed him over the edge.
Yeah.
I think having Elle there kept him in check.
He got cocky when Elle died.
He burst out laughing and all but fucking jizzes all over his fucking grave.
Pretty much.
He's on all fours laughing at him. I'm like surprised the investigators couldn't hear him like fucking after they walked off. He was loud as shit.
I would just see Matsuda going, people grieve in different ways, Chief.
That would be what he says. And then they have this like really cool scene where Kira's walking just down the street and past buildings, and you're watching like clips of different criminals dying everywhere, and the world starts to acknowledge Kira. The USA have made a statement saying they're not going to protest. Mm-hmm. They give in to Kira's demands.
Yep.
There's a fucking religious cult following Kira, made by Sakura Television.
Yep. And
there's broadcasters for it, and it's fucking insane. Kira's being accepted, and while the police force is no longer funding Elle's investigation, in fact, Elle had to make his entire task force before he died.
Oh, and he was even, at one point, they were actually told, because the president of the police didn't want to fight Kira, that the Japanese task force either had to quit their jobs or just come back to work for him because they couldn't do both.
So they all joined the task force except
for Aizawa, who went back, who ended up making up for it.
Mm-hmm. But it's fucking insane that this world, it's almost like overnight. As soon as Elle was taken out of the picture, Kira could do what he wanted with no consequences.
Yeah. And that's when he got sloppy.
Very much so. In fact, he started putting trust into other people. Something he'd never do before.
Well, he did do one of those before Elle died, though, the second Kira, but that was because, or the third Kira, that was because he and Misa were in a sloppy situation they couldn't get out of.
Yes, but he only gave a second Kira so he could investigate the second Kira himself.
Yeah, we should go over that eventually.
But as far as these other Kiras go,
yeah, because those are important characters to go over.
It's like important but not important at the same time. Basically, to prove himself innocent against L before he killed him off, he put himself in incarceration.
Yeah.
And told Ryuk to get rid of the Death Note.
Ryuk? Oh yeah, Ryuk. I thought you were gonna say he told Ryuzaki to lock him in there.
He gave sorry, you threw my train of thought off.
I apologize.
So Ryuk gives it Ryuk gets rid of his Death Note, and Rem gives another Death Note, the one that he eventually acquires off her dead body, to the Matsu.
The Yotsuba. Yotsuba organization.
And the leader of that organization, or at least one of the chairmen, is the new Kira.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason he gave it him is because when he didn't have the Death Note anymore, he lost all his memories, so L couldn't investigate him because he was a clueless and innocent person now.
And so was Mesa. They both gave up ownership.
But he was that confident in his investigation abilities that he tracked down Yotsuba along with
the Death Note
and got all his memories back.
Yeah,
it was fucking genius.
It was ingenious. He was that confident in himself that he knew even if he had lost every single ounce of his memories, that he would find the Death Note again and regain everything.
Because he knew he was that good of an investigator.
Yep.
Because he is on the same level as L. There's no doubt about that, and he's better than L because in the end he won.
Yep.
So. Then there's the introduction of a new antagonist for Kira, and that is N.
Yep.
Better known as Nia, and his real name's Nate Rivers.
Nate River.
So it's kind of weird. But Nia shares a lot of the same qualities as L, and I'd say the biggest difference between the two of them is Nia's... I'd say he's got less compassion, he's got less emotion.
Even less than L.
Which is very weird. But also there's another individual who's an antagonist who's named Mello. And he is a ball of emotion.
Oh, he's a fire.
And because of that, they're total opposites. Mello will do whatever he needs to investigate Kira and take the Death Note from him, whilst Nia will
be tactical.
Be tactical because emotion isn't there to stop him. So you've almost got two opposites in morality. Like, when whilst L was cold, he was never cold to the point where he was evil.
Yeah.
And he wasn't emotional enough to the point where it put his own self in risk.
Yeah.
So Kira's met by these two individuals, and because of that, he gets two new Kiras. The first Kira is Mikami,
yeah.
And he is pretty much a Kira worshipper. He has a great sense of justice, and he's the perfect tool for Akira to use to wipe the world clean.
Yep.
And then is an ex-girlfriend of his, who is a news broadcaster.
Takeda.
And he gives her the Death Note after revealing who he really is, and these two people that worship Kira are now in his possession to use as he pleases. So then it is pretty much he's free to investigate Nia and Mello and try and stop them, whilst everyone else does all the dirty work for him. So I'd say the battle to discuss first would probably be Mello vs. Kira.
Yeah, I think so.
And this is where me and Johnna both decided where Kira's morality and began to really slip.
Decay.
It's like it was already pretty bad after Elle died, but this was the moment. I'll let you explain the situation with Sayu.
Well, Elle's sister gets abducted by Mello because Mello hears that the Japanese task force has a Death Note and he wants it. So he proposes that they switch, Sayu for the notebook. Originally, he had captured the head of the Japanese task force, was it? It was somebody very important in the Japanese government anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And he ended up dying. Light killed him. And so next they kidnap Sayu, which Light had not anticipated. And don't get me wrong, he wasn't happy to hear she'd been, kidnapped, and he didn't want to kill his own sister.
But the first thing
but the fact is, he thought about it.
The first thing that came into mind was, I might have to kill Sayu.
Yeah, he actually considered it. And
Quite nonchalantly, too.
That's where it hits you. Wow, he's not even human anymore, is he?
So when they actually track down Mello, there's a bomb that goes off, and Soichiro Yagami, Light's father, is caught up in it.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually he dies on his deathbed. And rather than be angered by Mello or be upset about it, he's more happy that his dad doesn't know that he's Kira.
Well,
and he tries to get his dad to kill Mello in his final breath.
Knowing that this man wouldn't be able to go to heaven or hell if he wrote in that name.
Mm-hmm.
He'd do that to his own dad.
He was just that obsessed with getting rid of his enemies.
Couldn't you just ask him to tell you the name instead of writing it down? I mean, I never did understand that. And he actually made the deal to get the Shinigami eyes, Shoichiro. Mm-hmm. And he actually saw Mello's name, which is Mikhail Kiel. And
so he knew
he tried to talk Mello down, but Mello threw off the bomb. And you don't see it in the English version, but in the Japanese version, you actually see Matt rescue Mello from the rubble of the bomb.
Oh, because I always wondered about that. And Matt's an interesting character.
That's how he got the burnt face.
Matt is so both Mello and Nier come out of the same orphanage that El did.
They were supposed to be his predecessors, but there's also a third predecessor named Matt, whose real name is Mile Jeevis.
Yeah, that's it.
So you're Mile or Male? I'm not sure.
And it's male. So what happens with him is he pretty much gets 30 seconds of screen time.
And then bam, 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 bam.
Yeah, so
Swiss cheese.
So yeah, that pretty much what happened to him, which is a shame. But
it is, because he looked like an interesting character. Like they could have done something with him. But...
Yeah, it's like Mello's obsession was chocolate, Nate's was toys, and
for Matt it was video games, and for Elle it was sweets.
So it was very interesting. Then the next battle is N versus Kira. Now, this is also gonna let me talk about pretty much the end of the series. Mm-hmm. Which I fucking despise, but it is what it is.
I feel like a lot of times when you make an absolutely amazing manga or anime, it's hard to make the ending match up to the greatness that was the entire anime. There's very few animes I've seen where the ending lives up to the hype of the anime.
Clannad After Story pulled it up. No, you know what? The ending was good for Clannad After Story, but and everyone had an happy ending stuff was bullshit.
Yeah, that was bullshit.
So I can't even say that.
I liked Code Geass.
Code Geass had the perfect ending. Like, everyone was sent home happy, as depressed as they were by it.
Yeah.
Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, that had the perfect ending.
I did like that.
As opposed to the original anime.
Yeah, that was horrible.
That was a horrible ending. That was like, and everyone's depressed. Okay, we'll release a movie to finish it off.
You shouldn't have to release a movie to finish an anime.
When they had the movie, it still made all the same mistakes as the fucking original one because they weren't home happy.
Yep.
It was like, the fuck? But if you want to know more about that, we did a Full Metal Alchemist episode quite a while back.
Yeah.
So you can find that in the archives over on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, and here on blogtalkradio.com. So, Nate Nier...
Whatever his name is.
Yeah, N versus Kira, who is essentially L at this point, because Kira took the identity of L.
At one point, before he dies, L actually tells Light that he could actually predecess him.
And that's what Light loved about winning the most. It's like, I beat you, and now I am you. And no one could stop me because I am L.
And because you even said you wanted me to predecess you.
So, it's L... Light got really cocky. And he starts making obvious mistakes. And it goes to a point where the ending and how it all finished off and how Light made his comeuppance just didn't feel right.
Yeah.
Now, for starters, the reason why people hate the second half of this anime is because N is a horrible antagonist.
He is.
He has no interplay with Kira. He has no quirks that are interesting like L. They never have that argument. They never have that hostility. They never meet in fucking person till right at the end. So it destroyed the entire thing that you had with L versus Kira. The whole point of L versus Kira is they're trying to figure out they know who the other one is, but they're trying to find a way of beating them.
Yeah.
They're that close together. And that was all wiped away with N. They threw Mello in, but he never had enough of a presence where it made up for N being such a weak character.
Yeah. It was boring. Mello was a great character. I would have loved to see more of Mello, and even to see him work with Nier, even though I know that wasn't really a possibility. It's just even they didn't have to work together just to have more Mello. It would have balanced it out. It's like you put them together and you get L, and it just they were too separate.
Hmm. So the way that Light ends up getting killed is he actually sacrifices Takeda.
Takeda.
Takeda. I can't remember her name. Take.
Takeda.
Is Takeda? I thought it was Takeda. Ugh.
Here, I'll double check.
But either way, the female Kira ends up.
Takeda Kiyomi.
Takeda Kiyomi. She basically ends up getting killed by Kira and Mikumi, and that's the issue. They both written their names down in two different death notes, so there was something askew because what L had what's his name again?
Mikami?
Mikami do was write down fake names in a death note. In a fake death note. Sorry. He was copying names from his death note into a fake death note in case the SPD, who was SPK, who Nia was operating, found it.
Too many acronyms.
Mm-hmm. Too many fucking letters in this entire show.
Yeah.
So, because of that, when they break into the bank and actually get the real Death Note, they find that one of the deaths is askew because both Kira and him have written in it.
Yep.
And they switch the Death Notes round, and it fucks Light's plan up entirely. And I'll let you tell them how the final scene went down.
Ugh, that's complicated. It's really, really complicated because there was a lot of, it's a fake notebook. No, it's not a fake notebook. Yes, well, I changed the notebook when you weren't looking, but I changed the notebook when you weren't looking. Who changed the notebook, guys? It was just a bunch of that over and over, and it honestly confused the crap out of me, if I'm gonna be honest.
From what I got from it, Light was giving him the information to transfer into a fake book.
Yes. But then the FPK switched it out. The real Death Note out with a fake Death Note.
So basically, the reason Light got caught after all these meticulous plans where he never did, someone did the old switcheroo, and that's how he ends up getting killed.
Yeah.
What a fucking weak-ass ending. The Light that we knew would have predicted that they would have switched the books and switched them back.
Yep.
He would have never had that and it be an issue in the first place. So he ends up getting caught out, confessing that he's fucking Kira.
Because he's convinced that in 3 seconds they're all gonna die. And of course, they don't die, and they take a look at the notebook, and guess whose name wasn't written down? Light's name wasn't written down, so of course now they know for a fact he's Kira. Plus, he admitted it because he thought they were all going to die anyway.
And the old Light, the old Kira, would have never confessed. He would have waited for the deed to happen, but he'd become that arrogant and that cocky that he just let it all slide. And while some people like to say that's the whole point of absolute power absolutely corrupts, and that's the moral of the story, I also think it's a cop-out. It's weak. You can't be that meticulous up until that last episode. It doesn't work like that.
At least let him slowly get sloppier and sloppier.
He didn't degrade in skill. He just
one day made a mistake.
Did he just wake up at the wrong side of the bed? Yeah. It's like fucking so lazy writing. And that's what gets me into the good, the bad, and the ugly, because I think we've pretty much covered everything. Is there anything you wanted to touch on?
To be honest, I'd say 97% of this show is on my good list. The characters are great, the plot line's great, the art, the music, everything's great. We still have to discuss the potato chip, by the way, because that's on the great.
Well, if that's on your great, tell them now.
There's at one point, it's both great and ugly. I don't even know where to put this because it's just comical.
It's a thing.
It's so comical. I'm sure a lot of you already know about it. But the fact that at one point he tries to trick them because there's wiretaps and cameras in his room. And so he puts a little TV in a chip bag and pretends to be studying. And instead he's killing criminals with his left hand. He has a piece of the Death Note in there and he's watching TV while he studies with his right. And at one point he's like, I'll solve equations with my right hand and write names with the left. I'll take a potato chip and eat it. And he gets so fucking into it, man. And the music is just going crazy.
Dramatic as shit.
Like dramatic music.
It's like, this is one badass potato chip. So is that it for your good?
Yeah, as far as good goes, I mean, a good chunk of everything of this show is on my good list.
The things that stick out the most obvious, because is the voice acting for one. I think it's excellent in both. Light's voice actor, both in the English and Japanese versions, very good. I actually prefer his English voice actor because I think he got the laugh down perfectly.
I think they both did a really good job.
And the fucking heavy breathing and just the melodrama, which is Light Yagami when he's having one of these fucking I'm better than you moments.
Yeah.
The soundtrack itself is fucking brilliant.
It's great, yeah.
L's theme is really fun. There's just a whole bunch of different music in there, which is perfect for each setting. As far as like if you need something opera-y to like bring on doom and gloom, that type of thing, it's there. If you need just like a funky beat in the background as L goes through a monologue of what he's suspecting Kira for.
Or if you just need some music in the background while they kick each other's asses at tennis and overthink shit.
Yeah, it's like perfect. They've got everything down. It makes the stupidest thing feel amazing.
Yeah.
And that's what makes a good soundtrack. As far as the good goes, I have to give it to both Kira and Ella's characters. Both of them are just fantastic, and I don't think Kira gets enough love because there's a lot of fangirling.
He's a brilliant character.
Here's the thing, though. Like, L's considered the more popular because he's such a weird character, and because people don't know too much about him. Everyone knows everything about Light. They know him for his faults, they know him for his goods, and when you've got goods and faults, you're always going to weigh the faults of the most.
And there's always... L is so mysterious that people don't stop to think that there might be some bad things about him as well. And as much as I do prefer L, I'll admit that, there's not as much known about L to make a educated decision.
It's hard to hate someone when there's no flaws.
There's no data to go off of.
So we'll go on to the bad, and do you want me to go first or yourself?
It doesn't really matter. The only bad thing I really have here is the ending. And I'm kind of on and off about Mesa's English voice actor, sorry. Other than that, really, it's just the ending. It felt weak, and it felt sloppy, and it felt almost rushed, like they just thought of something to end it, like they didn't stop to think it over.
As far as bad goes, there's a couple of mistranslations. The first one... There's not so much mistranslations, it's when you translate something directly from Japanese to English, it just doesn't sound well. Sometimes you just need to swap the line out, and they didn't do that. I think one of Light's first lines in the entire anime is a death note? As in a notebook of death? Yeah.
Oh shit, Sherlock.
That's what I'm gathering it is too, dickhead. And he sounds so bewildered by it, and it was such a terrible line. It's like, if you're watching this show for the first time and that's one of his first fucking words, that's not a fucking good tone to set the show with. Thank God it turned out to be such a good show, because that was horrible. Nier is the main antagonist. It's weird calling Kira a protagonist because he's evil, but he's the main character.
Yes.
So the antagonist of the show, Nier, at the end, was so sloppy, so boring. Even his color palette was boring. It was all white.
They should have done more with Mello.
They should have made him more eccentric, I think. You needed... After you had L...
Some type of quirk.
After you had L, you had to go... Like, they had an option of going a total opposite, and they went the wrong opposite.
I feel like we were spoiled with L, and when we got Nier, it was just... We felt let down.
Mm-hmm. And the ugly, it also, as Johnna put it in her bed, it goes to my ugly. The ending of the show was fucking abysmal. The scene itself where Kira is dying...
That was well done.
Very well done. Like, I've got no issue with how they animated it, how it was voice acted. I just have an issue with how it was written.
I love that Ryuk kills him just because the entertainment is over now.
Yeah, he's like, oh, well, because Kira gets shot to bits after.
He's like, you'll rot in a cell and then get executed anyway, so I'm just gonna kill you.
But at least Kira gets to run away because of the distraction of the other Kira killing himself.
Yeah.
And he runs to a lighthouse, I think it was, and just dies on the steps because Ryuk writes his name in the notebook. And during the credits, we get kind of L's silhouette or like ghost look over him,
Mm-hmm.
almost as a I win in the end because it was my predecessors.
Yeah.
But that was a cool moment. But like the main meat of why did because sure Light lost, but why did he lose? And when you think about it, it was just so disappointing.
I feel like Light lost the moment he got cocky and killed Lindell Taylor. I felt like that was the beginning of his end. Because that's what got L's attention on him. And in the end, L did win.
He didn't, though.
I mean, his side won.
What I think L beat Kira in death because everything Kira had became was washed away by this god of the new world.
Mm-hmm.
Like he went from being a meticulous serial killer to an obnoxious. He called himself God.
Yeah.
So
divinity complex much.
Mm-hmm. But I just wish they hadn't have taken the lazy way out and just deteriorated his character. I would have rather someone with the same smarts.
Yeah.
And just outwitted him.
Yes.
Otherwise, if you're gonna have him lose, you might as well have just kept L all along.
Yeah.
I would have rather L had faked his death and come back, to be quite honest, in the shit.
What, like in the movie? That's what he did.
Oh, did he?
He faked his death. He wrote his own name in the notebook for 23 days in the future. And once a name is written in the death note, it can't be changed.
Mm-hmm.
So he faked his death and then got Mr. Yagami. It was a very different plot.
See, I would have preferred that.
Yeah.
Just because of how weak N is. And so we're pretty much got down with the meat of the anime. So is there any other thoughts you wanted to talk about, even if it's just in regards to the manga? Or
I didn't actually read the manga. I only read the part where Matsuda jumped out the window in the manga. I enjoyed the movie, but there's really not... It's too different for me to cover it right now because there's too many differences. Other than that, there's just those few little silly things like the potato chip. As much as this was a serious anime, they sprinkled little bits of humor in there and they weren't lost on me, and I really appreciated them.
Yeah, I can definitely agree with that. And what I want to talk about is, I don't know if you've seen this yet or not, and it was one of the theories of what happened to Light after
he died.
Because whilst you don't go to heaven or hell, Light killed more than most Shinigami do. He's like,
yeah.
So what happened to him? Well, they made a Death Note. They had a new Death Note series, which was just a retelling of the original story, but it was done more from Ryuk's perspective. Mm-hmm. There's also a few differences in there. I don't know if it was by mistake or if they decided to change the story, as like how Matt got killed or what he did prior to his death and stuff like that. But the reason he's retelling the story is because another Shinigami turns up. He has brown spiky hair, a jacket very similar to Light Yagami's, and he talks to Al and he talks to Ryuk and goes, I hear about a story about Light, who was someone you dropped the Death Note to, and he tells him the story. And he walks, and it's weird, Ryuk looks blind these days. He's got no pupils in his eyes. He's obviously aged a lot since those days. Mm-hmm. So after that, this mystery Shinigami just walks off, and Ryuk, I forgot the exact dialogue, but he hints that one might know what he's talking about because he leaves during the story.
Yeah.
Already, because it's Light.
Yeah.
And I'd like to believe that. I think it'd be a fitting end if after he died he became a Shinigami himself.
Because maybe they were impressed with him.
And I think it'd be interesting if they ever did a second series if he was the one that dropped it into the world. Mm-hmm. To find a human to make it the world good again or something, to left where he didn't laugh. I've always thought that'd be a really cool concept.
That could be fun.
The only issue is sequels don't tend to be horrible.
That's very true.
It could be interesting. I've always liked that concept. And I think, so what do you think about the concept of being a Shinigami?
I think that it's a pretty big possibility. I'm not sure what else could have happened other than him just not existing anymore or him being stuck on Earth. Wow, people are shoveling at this hour. What time is it? It's 9 o'clock and people are shoveling snow outside. It's been dark for 4 hours.
Yeah.
Anyway, either he'd be stuck on Earth, or he would not exist at all, or he'd be a Shinigami, and those are the only 3 possibilities I can currently think of.
And I can't imagine a world without light.
Yes, that would be dark.
So with that, I think we're going to call it a night, and thank you for joining.
Are you addicted?
Oh. Well, I was getting into that, but you kind of interrupted me. But yes, thank you for joining us here on Mega Powers Radio. We have one closing thing to do, and that is check if we are addicted to Death Note. Johnna, are you addicted to Death Note?
I'm addicted to Death Note. I've been for years.
I'm Stephen Wago, and I'm also addicted to Death Note. So, if you enjoyed the show tonight on Mega Powers Radio, please continue to support us. Check out all the great content that we have flowered out throughout the week. Check us out on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, YouTube. If you search Mega Powers Radio, Addicted to Anime, you'll find us. We've also got a Facebook group, Facebook page. We're nearing 2,000 likes. We thank you for the support for that. The URL's facebook.com/addictedanimefans. So, until next time, I'm Stephen Wago.
I'm Johnna Wago.
And we're addicted to anime on Mega Powers Radio.